Hello. Hello, guys. How are you? Fabi from Fabi English here. Okay. So, welcome to another IELTS journey with Fabi, where we talk about everything and anything IELTS. Okay. So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I don't know where you are in the world. So, if you want to start by telling me where you are in the world. That would be nice. I always like to know where you guys are watching from. Usually the winner is Colombia. Let's see who's going to be the winner today. See, hi, a person from Colombia just said hi. Hey, Carlos, how are you? Yeah, so usually we have some winners. Colombia. Okay, yeah. Peru. Okay, we have a Peru now. All right. So we have a draw so far. One Colombia, one Peru. Sounds like soccer. All right, guys. So yeah, so so just pop your questions in. Please say hello, say where you are watching from. Okay. And if you have any questions, pop the questions in the chat. Okay. And if I don't get to your question straight away, I'll get to your question at the end. All right. And just so you know, we're also live on YouTube. Okay. And with YouTube, we can do much more. Okay. So I have way more space. Okay. I'm not sure, I don't think I'm going to be using the board today. Okay. But if I'm using the board, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see everything. Okay. So if you don't know where I am on YouTube, just Fabi English on YouTube. All right. Cuckoo. Okay. So today our topic is speaking. Okay. Not just speaking, we're going to talk about freezing during the speaking test. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. If you have freezed in your life during the speaking test, hands up, please. Leave a comment. Me. All right, okay, because it happens sometimes. Okay, even people who are quite fluent, okay, people who are quite confident. Sometimes people do get stuck while they are doing the speaking test. Okay, it happens. It happens. Okay, mostly because people get nervous. All right, but I'm gonna tell you two secrets. Okay, actually three. It's gonna be more like three things that you can do. Okay, just gonna take a note here. Okay. I just had an idea now. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So one, two, three. Yeah. It's going to be about three things. Okay, guys. Fortunately, we don't have the whole day. So, all right. So I'm going to keep it concise. And I'm probably going to do another live on this topic because this topic is quite popular. And there's so many things we can do. And again, guys, what I do, I share with you guys things that have worked for me, things that have worked for my students. Okay. So your job is to take it in, give it a go, try and see if it works for you. Okay. And then if it doesn't, change your strategy. All right. Okay. So that's the best thing I can tell you today. All right. So let's get started. So before I start talking about freezing during the IELTS test. One thing I'd like to do with you guys is to remind you of what the speaking test is like. Why is that? Because I do feel that sometimes people freeze because they don't know what's coming. Okay, so you don't know what's going to happen. So to me, the best way to not to freeze is actually to be prepared. And the first thing you have to do is to know what the speaking test is like. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go over the speaking test. Okay, just for the people who don't know yet. Okay, and if you know, just to remind you of what it's like. So, with the speaking test, right? First, the examiner will ask you some personal questions like, where are you from? What do you do? Do you study? Do you work? Okay, and these questions are quite simple, quite easy. Then the examiner will go into a topic, which will be part one, right? These topics are quite simple topics with simple sentences. Okay. And the topics could be, I don't know, gardening, music, movie, food, this kind of topics. Okay. So they're quite simple and really straightforward with simple questions. Then the examiner will move on to part two of the test. And what's part two like? Part two, the examiner will give you what we call prompts, okay, a card with what they would like you to talk about, okay, and then you have to talk about the topic, right? And so it would be describe something, and you would have probably four different topics that you can, not topics but prompts, all right, that you can talk about regarding that topic. Okay, so that's what the examiner will give you. And you have 1 minute to prepare. So at that time, you can see something and you have a piece of paper to take some notes, right? So you can look at that and you can take some notes. 1 minute to prepare, and you'll be talking for 2 minutes. Okay. And then they move on to part three of the test, where you will be answering questions related to the topic from part two. But these questions are more complicated. They are longer questions. Okay. And they also require longer answers. Okay. So just one thing. Let me do one thing here. All right. There. There. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I think my earphone just connect to my phone. I think you're ready. Can you hear me, guys? If you can't hear me, please let me know. All right. Okay. So, all right. So that's the speaking test. Okay. So the speaking test is three parts. Okay. First part, simple question. Second part, you have 1 minute to prepare, and then you talk by yourself for 2 minutes. And the third part, longer questions. Okay. Which require longer answers. All right. So, first tip for you to keep talking. First thing you can do. Okay. Uh, don't try to make it perfect. Okay. I feel that people who get stuck, tell me if it's you, okay? Write it in the comments. It's me. I feel that the people who get stuck, either in the writing part or the speaking part, are the people who are trying to write something that is kind of perfect. That's one thing. And the second thing is maybe you are thinking about the topic in your mind, in your language, and you're thinking about all the words you could be using. And maybe you don't know all the words in English, and that's when you freeze. Okay. So, my first advice for you, okay, to avoid this freeze would be keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Okay. Because if you keep it simple, you will keep talking. And you'll be surprised at the fact that if you start talking, all right, when you start talking, it's easier for you to keep talking. Okay. So I do think that most people have a hard time starting. Okay. I'm going to talk about if you freeze while you're talking. Okay. But I do feel that some people, it takes them a while to start talking. Okay. So if you are the kind of person, okay, who actually takes you a little bit longer to start, my suggestion would be keep it simple. Okay. So let's go over the parts of the test having this in mind. Okay. Keeping it simple, right? I do believe that part one is not that bad. Okay. Because part one, the questions are quite simple questions. And these questions don't require long answers. All right. So if you have done the IELTS test and the examiner said, thank you, thank you, thank you, please say me in the chat because it happens sometimes, right? So you're part one, you're answering the question, the examiner says, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's not bad. Okay, so if you are the kind of person who usually freezes and the examiner said thank you, it's a good thing because the examiner heard enough. All right, so just keep this in mind, okay? But, all right, so when you listen to the question, don't try to give an elaborate question. Okay, just try to give a simple question, which is more than enough, especially for part one. Okay, guys, especially for part one, definitely. Cool. Part one. Part two. Okay, part two. Wow, some balloons now. All right, cool. So, part two. Okay, so keep it simple in part two, especially when you are writing down your plan to speak. Okay, when you're writing down your plan to speak, keep that simple. Okay, keep that simple. Just the words there. Okay, and again, you'd be surprised at how much you can speak just by using those words there. Okay, 100%, guys, 100%. Okay, so again, it doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so because if you keep talking, you're gonna probably gonna get a high score for fluency. Okay, and then you're gonna get a higher score, definitely. Okay. Oh, something else I remember to talk about. One more thing. Four things now I'm gonna talk to you about. Okay, and then for part three. Okay, so part three is quite tricky because then you need some very specific questions, right? You have more specific questions and more abstract questions, so that will require more from you. All right. So when it comes to part three, again, that's where you really need to start simple. So start simple, and then you will be adding more things later. Okay. And I will talk to you about in a minute what those things are. Okay. So, my advice, I know it sounds a little bit crazy when I say keep it simple, especially if you need a high score on the IELTS test. Okay. But if you are freezing, it's probably because you are a little bit anxious. Okay. And if you're trying to do something perfect and you're anxious, you are going to freeze. Okay, guys, you are going to freeze. So just if you are getting a bit anxious, just keep it simple because when you keep it simple, you're talking. And when you start talking, you relax. And when you relax, that's when your great ideas will come. Okay, believe me, I've seen this happen before. Okay, also, for example, recently when I'm practicing speaking tests with my students, lots of people are actually underperforming in part one, which is the easiest part, and performing quite well in parts two and three. Why do you think that is? Why do you think these people don't do so well in part one, which is the easy part, and then they get better? Because they warm up. So they do part one and they see they can do it, and then they get confident and then they do much better. Okay. So just think about it. Making it simple will help you with your confidence. Okay, guys. So that's something that you should be doing if you freeze during the speaking test. Okay. So we talked about one of the most important things not to freeze. The first thing would be to know what the test is like, because surprises will make you freeze. Okay. Then trying to keep it simple. Okay. Definitely trying to keep it simple. That will definitely help. The next thing. Okay. So this one is to help you unfreeze and also to help you extend a little bit, which is giving examples. Okay. So let's say that you started talking. Okay. And you're like, oh, what do I say now? What do I say now? Give an example. Why do I suggest examples? Because when we give examples, okay, we are extending what we are saying. So you're extending your answer, number one. Oh, every time that happens. On Instagram, there's a thumbs up now. So, so when you are using examples, you're extending. Okay, you are on the topic and you are supporting what you are saying. So to me, the best way to extend is through examples. Okay. So let's say you're getting a little bit stuck and you go, for example, or you can say, for instance, another one you can use to introduce an example. Okay, so this is actually a very good way to keep talking. Okay, very, very good way to keep talking. Okay, so giving examples, giving examples. All right, cool. So we talked about knowing what the test is like. We talked about don't make it perfect. Keep it simple. If you keep it simple, you keep talking and then you can improve that later as you speak. Okay. And one thing that's it's good. It's a good thing I'm going to share with you right now. Okay, let me get some water first. Okay, so something good I'm going to talk to you guys right now is some people confuse freezing with hesitation. Okay. What is hesitation? Hesitation is when you pause a little bit, you stop a little bit to think. Okay. So it's thinking time. Okay. So freezing is completely different from thinking time. Okay. Hesitation is fine, hesitation is possible. Okay. So if you stop sometimes, if you just go, it's fine. Okay. It's completely fine. Okay. So freezing is different from hesitation. And you have to think about what am I doing? What do I do? Do I freeze or do I hesitate? Okay. Freezing is not the best because the freeze is more like, and you really don't know what you're going to say. Okay. All right. So, like I said, if you're usually is because people are trying to make something perfect, and you don't need perfect. Okay. You need to start simple, and then you move on to make it better. Okay. Make it better as you go. All right. But if you go, well, I think that's fine. Okay. So it's a good idea maybe to put some fillers when you're hesitating. Okay. So it doesn't look like just like that. All right. It's a good idea to put some of these fillers in the middle there. Okie dokie. Yep. All right. So yeah. So I've helped heaps of students with that already, guys. So yeah. So I think that hesitation is fine. Okay. Come on. If you ask me a question now, okay, if you pop a question here right now in the chat, I'll be like, actually, well, and it's fine. All right. It's completely natural to hesitate a little bit to answer something. Okay. But today we're talking about the freezing, right? So if you freeze, okay, so that can be a bit of an issue. Okay. The freezing itself, because the examiner wants you to keep talking. Okay. So when it comes to part one, I don't think that a lot of freezing will happen because it's a simple part of the test, right? But let's think about part two. Okay, let's say that if you're freezing in part two, okay, part two I think is one of the actually easiest ones to unfreeze because you have visuals to help you there, right? So you have your notes, and you also have the prompts to help you there. Okay, so you have two things to help you there. And if you go and you talk about, oh yeah, so I'm gonna talk about this first topic, second topic, third topic. Okay, you can actually go back. Okay, and then let's say that you finish talking, right? Because you don't have the timer, right? Only the examiner has the timer. You don't have the timer. So you let's say you finish talking and then the examiner is looking at you. All right. The uncomfortable look. If the examiner is still looking at you, please keep talking. All right. So what can you do? That's when you go to the examples. All right. So if you go, I finished, look back at the prompts and see where can I add more. Describe something. Okay, describe blah blah blah, and then you're gonna have something that you can add more to. That's when you're gonna use your examples. Okay, simple examples doesn't have to be something crazy. Start simple, and you will see that when you start simple, you will keep going. It will flow better. Okay, you'll be surprised. You will be surprised, guys. True. Okay, so part two. All right, if you freeze in part two, just go ahead and have a look at the prompts. Okay, dokie. Yeah. Okay. Then part three. Part three is a little bit tricky. I agree. Okay. And usually the questions are a little bit long. Okay. So I think that people struggle more when they have longer questions in part three. And in part three is completely fine if you ask the examiner to repeat the question, especially if it's a long question. Okay. And take that time to really understand the question. All right. And just give a simple answer. All right. So they said, what do you think of this? Well, I think it's good because, and then you continue. And then you say your because. And then you don't know what to say anymore. For example, keep talking. Okay, guys, keep talking. Okay. And again, guys, today we're not talking about which vocabulary to use, accuracy, nothing like that. Okay. Because if you are freezing during the speaking test, okay, if you are my student, I would try to unfreeze you first. Then I would think about your English. Okay. The first step would be unfreeze and think about the questions. Then I would focus on your English. Okay. So if you are the kind of person who's tried it out before and you are freezing, okay, the first thing you have to do is unfreeze. Okay. Stop thinking about strategies. Oh, because I have to use this sentence, this vocabulary, this grammar. Don't worry about that because if you can speak, why are you worried about that? Okay. So this is a very specific piece of information I'm giving you today. Okay. It's just for you to keep moving. Okay. And guys, anyone can unfreeze. It's possible. Okay. It's possible. Of course, some people are more fluent than others. It's true. Okay. However, anyone can perform well. Okay. You just have to practice a little bit longer, maybe. Okay. If you freeze during the speaking test. Okay. Like I said before, I think it's a mix of anxiety and maybe a little bit of lack of confidence. Okay. And how do we do that? We have to become less anxious and with more confidence. Okay. And as I mentioned before to you guys, how can we decrease our anxiety? By knowing what's going to happen. How do we do that? With practice, knowing what kind of topics we can get. So that will lower your anxiety. Okay. And the other thing that can happen is the lack of confidence. Okay. So if your confidence is here, we have to bring your confidence up. And how do we do that? Start simple. When you start simple, you will see that you can do it. All right. And then what do? You just improve it, improve it, improve it, and improve it. Okay. And remember, guys, usually people who freeze during the speaking test are the ones who are also freezing during the writing test. Okay. And I do think that the people who freeze are the people who are trying to make it perfect. Okay. And in the beginning, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. So that's why I say that practice is so important. So you start practicing. Okay. And then it's going to be very simple and you build. Okay. Like, oh, simple. And then not as simple. Ooh, I'm getting it more sophisticated. And then when you notice it, you're not freezing anymore and you just flow. All right. Okay. I've seen this happen many times. Do you have any questions for me, guys? They're really quiet today. Or maybe I missed questions. I don't know. Let me just go back to it. Let me just go back to it. Let me see. YouTube is easier to check because the chat doesn't keep moving like this one. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Any questions? Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Oops. No, I don't think I have any questions today. No questions today. Okay. Yeah, guys. So, oh, good advice. Oh, thank you. Thank you. How are you, Linda? Yeah, so okay, guys. So just a recap. Okay, I think some people may be typing some questions there. Okay, so just a recap for us. Okay, so best ways to avoid freezing for the IELTS test. Okay, one, know what's happening. Okay, know what's happening, know what the test is like. Okay, that's the easy part, right? And we talked about that. So if you missed the beginning, okay, go back to the beginning. This live will be on Instagram and also on YouTube. I suggest you go over. Oops, I suggest you go over to YouTube. Okay, because I don't know, I like watching longer things on YouTube, personally speaking. So yeah, so you can head over to YouTube to watch this. Okay, and at the beginning I talked about, explained again, okay, what the IELTS test, the speaking part is like. Okay, so the best way to stop freezing, first of all, know what the test is like. Okay, then something else you can do, keep it simple, start it simple. And when you start it simple, you build your confidence and then you can keep speaking. Okay, because I do think that people freeze because they're trying to make something perfect. Start simple. Okay, next thing you can do, if you freeze and you don't, because you don't know what to say anymore, give an example. Okay, but that's just if you already started. Okay, guys, so give an example, right? And do not get confused between freezing and hesitation. Freezing is that moment where you have no idea what you're going to say. Okay, hesitation is what we call thinking time. Okay, I'm thinking about, what am I going to say? And it's completely fine. Anyone can have that. Okay. All right. Cool. Any questions for me? Any final questions? Any final questions? No? I think I'll be back tomorrow with listening. Okay, guys? Tomorrow will be listening. Listening. Today we talked about speaking. Yeah. Yeah. We're talking about this topic because the topic that people have been requesting. Yeah. So, how not to freeze during the IELTS test. All right. So, no questions for me. So, if any questions, I'm going to go. All right. Okay. So, guys, just remember, okay, you can watch this on YouTube, also Fabi English on YouTube. Okay. If you have any other questions, okay, you can pop in the comments here or you can DM me. I'm becoming much better at checking my DMs. Okay. I wasn't very good before because I never paid attention to requests. Now I do. Okay. So, if you want to talk to me, just go ahead and send me a message there. Okay. Or send me an email, fabi@fabienglish.com. All right. And if you have any requests for lives you'd like to see here, just shoot me a message. All right. Okay. So I will see you soon. Okay. Bye bye.